Utah Puck Report. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, jumping through some hurdles here. Back in the studio. Glad to be back. Being back in the studio means we're getting close to the season starting, which is going to be exciting for everybody. First off, I want to thank our sponsors, Larry H. Miller Toyota in Murray. If you're looking for a new car, go there. If you're looking for a used car, go there. Call Jeff. Tell him we sent you, and he'll hook you up with some kind of a hockey deal. I don't know if that's true or not, but he'll take good care of you. Because when you buy a car from Larry H. Miller Toyota, you're like family. Back in the studio with my longtime friend and other goalie. And in fact, I'm going to attach to this. I'm going to attach the picture of me and you when I was e-bugging and we were stretching that somebody took. I thought it was a cool picture.
That's a good one.
Garrett Metcalf. Garrett, we've got some things to catch up on. You've had some real life changes, and let's start. I don't think I've had you on. Have we had you on since you had your injury and had to retire?
No, I don't think so.
So talk us through that a little bit. Make sure you're close enough to the mic, and just talk us through what happened and like when you realized that you were going to have to step away from playing.
So just kind of the injury. I don't want to get too into detail, but obviously 2 years ago was the last year. The one game I played just, wasn't feeling right, so went and saw the doctor, and that was kind of the route that we ultimately went down. That was pretty much the only option, and unfortunately led to me not being able to play hockey anymore. I've been in the game for so long, it was really hard to get away from it. And so I felt like the next best thing for me was coaching, and I was fortunate enough when I was with the Grizzlies, it was a smooth transition, and Ryan let me hang around and go on the bench for home games and, kind of mentor those young goalies that we had. And I just really enjoyed it and loved it, so I just found a way to continue to do that. Yeah,
it's tough because you mentioned something on the way up here that you'd been, chasing the game and been a part of the game your entire life. And then all of a sudden that part of your identity as a player, that is your identity. When people ask you, like when you first meet people know I'm a firefighter. That's my identity. And like if you're a hockey player, that's your identity. And then you have to shift to being something else. Was there some kind of animosity or like, what's that feeling? I don't even know how to phrase it, but like that feeling of being a coach, because you've coached the whole time, right? Every hockey player has to coach during the summer to make a little extra cash. But knowing that, all right, I'm not going to lace them up anymore. What was that like emotionally?
Yeah, it was weird, and it's funny because I think that, as a mentor now and even when I was playing, that's one thing that I always tell my kids is like, you can't have your identity be tied up in hockey. And I associate that with goalies and like whether you win or lose, like that's not a reflection of who you are as a person or whether you make a team or don't make a team. Like I think inevitably athletes get wrapped up in their sport and that's who they think that that's who they are and that's where their value is created. But I think you have to take a step back and realize that my value and who I am is not in the position that I play or the sport that I play. And I think you see that a lot with people that have faith, big faith, like they put a lot of trust in God. I'm not saying that I do or that you need to, but I feel like oftentimes they do a very good job of disassociating the athletic part and then who they actually are as a person. So that's one thing that I try to pride myself on, but regardless of how prepared you think you are for when your career comes to an end, emotionally it's very hard. You do go through that who am I, because you've spent so much time going to the rink, spending time with your teammates, working on your craft, and now it's kind of like, what am I going to do with myself?
Yeah.
So
it's kind of crazy because one of the first couple of years that I was doing the podcast here, I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago, we had another guy doing a podcast here, a guy named Scott Mitchell, like legendary quarterback, NFL quarterback, Utah Hall of Fame, and I was with him when we did the University of Utah Hall of Fame for him, and we took a bunch of his helmets there, and we had some Chick-fil-A, and we're sitting around talking. Everybody else left, and I'm just sitting there like cleaning up. Like he's got 10 helmets, NFL, World League, all that stuff, and I'm sitting there talking to him, and he's just looking at it, and he looks at me and he goes, "You never know when it's going to be over." Mm. He's like, "I was a starting quarterback in the NFL." Making tons of money, and the next year I couldn't get a contract as a backup. I couldn't get on the practice squad, And he's like, people stop calling you back. And he's like, you just never know when it's going to be over. And it's, I don't know, even just me playing, like I never anticipated just not being a hockey player all of a sudden. And I guess I always was, but I was even looking like when the high schools here, they have senior night, like you have that, that that's going to be it, right? But we didn't have that when I was growing up. We didn't have senior night. We didn't do that at Weber State. We didn't do that at the programs that I was in. We didn't do it. Just all of a sudden, I had a job at the fire department, and I had to be a grown up, and I was having kids, and I was like, oh, it never really occurred to me. I didn't have that time, that all of a sudden transition. I just kind of grew out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But having it be abrupt, and that's your advice to everybody, is just like you're more valuable than just being a player.
Well, yeah, I mean, you talk about that guy you were talking to that's a Hall of Famer and his helmets and all this stuff, and he's not getting calls back. And it's like, if you sit there and think that that's a personal attack on who you are and your character, it's going to be really hard to deal with. But if you understand that the reasons I'm not getting calls back is because people don't think I can perform at the level that I used to, those are two very different things. Because I think one hurts a lot more than the other. If you think that it's attack on who you are and your character and who you are as a person versus like, they just don't think I have the skills to be the athlete that I was anymore. And if you're growing out of that, I feel like that's an easier pill to swallow than a personal attack on who I actually am.
Yeah, for sure. So you have the opportunity to coach with the Grizzlies, and that leads into your next opportunity, which is going back to coach for your old college.
Yep.
What was that like?
Well, it was interesting because I spent the summer rehabbing in Reno with my girlfriend, and then just same thing, kind of figuring out what to do, looking at different jobs online, and I felt like for me, staying in hockey was the best. I actually had verbally committed to coach a AA team in Tahoe, Lake Tahoe Academy.
Oh, wow.
And then shortly after, got a phone call from my old coaches at Long Island, and it was just like, I can't turn this down. They talked about their strength and schedule, and I knew that if I went to Long Island, I would never sit there and think, what if I went to Tahoe? But I knew if I accepted that job in Tahoe, I'd always think, what if I went to Long Island?
Yeah.
So I knew that that's what I had to do, and that's what I did. We talked about walking in here, best season in program history. We had 20 wins. We never had more than, I think I was the only goalie that had above a 900 save percentage in the program's history, and I was there the first year that had played more than X amount of games. We had 3 that had over a 900, so 1 nominated for the Mike Richter Award. So From that standpoint, it was really good. I had a really fun year hockey-wise, but we talk about chasing the dream, being away from my girlfriend for 3.5 years. My family's on this side of the country. It just, at what point, what are you chasing?
Yeah. It's tough, and it's tough to realize that. And then the next opportunity I wanted to talk to you about is, the Utah Mammoth give you a call.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What was that like?
I wish I knew how they got my contact. I think I had that email for maybe a month, and Kristen Bonus reached out to me, just sent me an email. And I remember thinking it was right around when, I'm going to forget his name, the NHL coach came to town and was giving that talk. Why can't I think of his name?
I'm not sure. Who?
The old Winnipeg Jets coach. Why can't I think of his name? Is it Kristen's dad? Is it Rick Bonus?
Rick Bonus?
Yeah, Kristen's dad.
Yeah, Seattle, okay.
Yeah, so now it's Seattle. But Rick Bonus was coming to town. So I got an email about that, like coming to hear him talk.
Oh, okay.
And then like the same day I got an email about the Mammoth camp, and I didn't know what it was. Like maybe it was like all the coaches in Utah get invited to come and watch the camp, and what a cool opportunity that would be. And then I started to find out what it was. So I really have no idea how I got invited to that, but super grateful and fortunate to be able to attend, and what a fun opportunity.
Yeah, how cool was that to be out there? And you're an NHL draft pick. You've had this experience, but to be on the ice during dev camp, especially the Mammoth dev camp with all those first round draft picks, and to watch the speed and the skill, and no matter how long you've been in the game, if you step away for 2 years and you come back, you're like, these kids are better. Like the skill-wise coming in every year is better, but if you're not there for a couple of years, it's hugely noticeable. Is that what you were seeing? Were you just seeing some massive talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a lot of great talent. It was fun to see, the different parts of the world that our draft picks are from. It's cool seeing like Tidge Iginla. Obviously, we grew up watching his dad in the NHL, and just some of the habits, I think, is the biggest thing that I noticed that separated some of those higher-end draft picks from, say, the lower-end ones were the college invitees. Not that they weren't good, but just the daily habits and the way that they prepared and what they did on the ice. I thought that there was a huge difference.
It's interesting because I never really noticed like what you're talking about, the daily habits, until I started getting like as an equipment rep and hanging around the Parisis. And they're not just hockey players. They don't just go to the ice and play and then go off and do whatever. It's like they wake up, it's all about nutrition, it's all about working out, it's all about like it's their life.
Yeah.
And that's what really kind of, and you know, they're around a bunch of other guys that are going to get drafted too, but the other guys are out maybe going out and having an adult beverage, and these guys are like, no, too many calories, like I'm sticking to this, and this is what it's going to make it. And you see, does that start younger now?
I think so. I mean, you talk about way back in the day, they're drinking 8-10 beers after a game, and then they're playing the next night. And I don't think that happens quite as often. There's some guys that do definitely like their pops, but yeah, the preparation is definitely a lot different now than it used to be. You hear on like the Spit and Chicklets podcast, they talk about how the game is way different. The kids are way different. Yeah. Like a lot of them aren't playing other sports anymore. They're all one sport focused, and they're training so much, which I think is kind of a deficit in my opinion. I still agree with that multi-sport thing for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I always was an ambassador for my son, at least, like play multiple sports. And he was getting forced by coaches like, hey, you have to play just this with us. You can't be a soccer player and a hockey player. And I remember one of the coaches going, hey, you're a hockey guy. Talk to your kid. And I'm like, look, he's 13. Like, he might want to be a pirate next week, or, you know, or like a ninja. Who knows? He's into Jedi. I'm going to support him in whatever he does, but I'm not going to make him just play hockey. Because I always thought that, and I was always told, it's better to have all those other resources. You hear about, even back in the days of Forsberg with the Avalanche, how great his footwork was because he played soccer too growing up, right? So it seems like we are really losing the emphasis on not just playing multiple sports, but, you know, having some life outside of the game. And are you seeing that too, or?
Yeah, I mean, since I've been back, that's what I see. I think there's an overemphasis in training, and I think there needs to be a big break after the season's over. No matter what your age is, the kids just need to take time off. And then playing other sports, I think, is huge. You talk about it like the footwork. You're just developing the athleticism. And then to your point, you don't know if they're going to stick with hockey, so why not let them try other things? But I think we have to look at developing athletes more than just developing hockey players. And I think we need to see more people, i.e. coaches, in my opinion, care more about the kids than maybe, say, their business or whatever's going on. Because sure, you can start training the day after the season starts, but is that really beneficial for the kids? In my opinion, it's not.
Well, what are we doing with tryouts being 2 weeks after the season ends?
Yeah.
You don't even give a kid a chance to go do anything else, and all of a sudden they've got tryouts, so they didn't get to go to camp to work on some fine things. They're just coming out of the season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tryouts, I see all these spring teams now.
Yeah.
I feel like some of these kids never get a break.
Right.
Like I talk to their parents, like they're on the ice 3 times today, or, you know, the season just ended, they're on this spring team, and then we have tryouts. It's like, you got to give these kids a break because, one, you're talking to someone that's had injuries, obviously. You're now going to be more injury prone. If you want them to play hockey or they want to play hockey longer, they're probably going to get burnt out. Like, they need to experience other parts of life. Life is not just hockey, hockey, hockey. Because there will come a day when it's all going to be hockey, but at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, it's not all about hockey.
I would like to see, and I used to have the stats on what the burnout rate was, because it was like super high at 10 and then again at 14. Like I know the first step was when hitting was introduced. You had a big dropout rate. And then I think it was like at 14, there was another big dropout rate because kids are like, oh, there's girls and there's, you know, I got to pay attention to school and I got to do all these other things. But it is, and you know, there are those kids. I remember Mason Manick. He didn't want to do anything but play hockey. Mm-hmm. And even when his parents were like, hey, we're going to the lake. And he's like, I'm bringing my rollerblades and my stick, and I'm going to, like, if we're not on the water, I'm going to be playing hockey. So some kids want it all the time, but it's got to be driven by the kid. You got to support the kid in what they want to do and let them know they have options.
Yeah, 100%. I also think rollerblading at the lake's a little bit different. Yes, it's hockey, but it's also different. You know, it's like, that's the enjoyable part. You're not on the ice. It's not structured. You're not with the coach. There's not, I guess, so much pressure around it. He's just doing it for the sheer joy of doing it. And if some other kids like baseball for the sheer joy, let them go play baseball. Let them play golf. Let them play soccer. Like, these kids need to try other things because they don't know if they're going to like it until they actually try it.
Yeah, and you brought up a word right there that I think we need to focus on too is unstructured. And Gretzky was a big proponent of this. He'd be like, "Hey, don't coach." And JP Parise used to say the same thing. Go down to the lake, the frozen lake, play. We're not going to come coach you. Invent games, invent moves, and play around. And then the second part of that too is like they never made kids do push-ups when they missed shots. And you see that a lot, right? Like, oh, you missed high and wide. Do push-ups. And I remember the mindset behind that, but the mindset that Gretzky and JP Parise were trying to teach is that let them try everything. Quit coaching them at certain points and just let them go out there and be creative. That's where the creativity comes from. That's where the new stuff comes from. And now I feel like every time they're on the ice, there's somebody out there coaching them.
Yeah. Well, then they're afraid to make mistakes. And it's funny, I've had this conversation in the last week, more specifically with goalies, but we're creating these goalie school goalies now because they do a drill, and let's say they're going into reverse VH. If they don't hit their toe box every single time, they start the drill over. Well, what happens when you get into a game and you mess up and you miss your toe box? There's no start over.
Yeah.
So we're not teaching kids how to learn and react when they make a mistake. We're teaching them that they have to be perfect, and that's not the case. Hockey's too fast and too unpredictable to be perfect. It's how do you make that mistake, react, and then make the next play, whether you're a goalie, forward, defenseman. And I think really emphasizing that it's okay to make mistakes, but if we make a mistake, how do we learn from it and how do we get better?
Yeah, and learning from it and adapting to what just happened, because you're right, it's fast. Maybe your toe strap slipped a little bit, or just who knows. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of things that are going to go weird, and you just have to be able to play with it. And you're right, you do have a lot of the goalie camp goalies now. All right, so then after the Mammoth thing, you have a choice. You have options. You have offers. What do you pick to do this season? Where's Garrett Metcalf this year?
Yeah, so I'm the head coach of the U14 Renegades. Just an opportunity I couldn't turn down for multiple reasons. I think that, growing up here, I had some good mentors, but I don't think that there was a lot of good mentors. So for me to be able to give back to Utah hockey, it's just so exciting for me, especially at that age group, because I feel like they're still moldable. Especially on the bigger side is like the mental aspect. And I've talked to you before. I think the biggest, jump I ever had in my career is when I played for the Colorado Rampage. Like, I feel like I owe everything to Andrew Sherman and Pat Bingham and John Ang, who was our strength coach, just because of the mindset that they developed within me, just really growth mindset, taking the positives out of every negative or positive situation. Again, how can you learn from that? How can you be better? And then just really how you treat people, how do you approach practices, games, that preparation, like all of that really came from that time with the Rampage. So I think trying to really teach that side, because to your point, all these kids have the skills coaches. They're getting all the reps that they need to from that standpoint, but what mental reps are they really getting? How are they learning to deal with adversity or frustrations and not let it hinder their ability to be better for it the next shift?
Do you remember a time where it just clicked with you, with some one of those coaches said, like, hey, do the, and I bring it up all the time with you, like, because I was pretty strict in my camp on, I told all my coaches, make sure that the players are having fun. Mm-hmm. Like, the last thing I wanted to do was take somebody's passion from the game. And I remember the one time Jordan Parise said to you, hey, either either be here or quit. Like, you're wasting your dad's money.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of talking to kids like that. I think maybe at some point you have to say that to them. I don't know. I can't ever see a point. But is there a time where a coach said something to you where you're like, yeah, I do need to be – was it one time or was it just leading by example?
I was leading by example, but it was one time. But it's funny because you said that exact thing. When did it click?
Yeah.
And I noticed that with coaching is like I could tell you and I could tell Tegan the same thing at the same time. It may take you a day and it may take him 2 weeks. So you don't really know when that's going to click. But the biggest thing was trusting the process with Andrew Sherman. I wasn't playing a lot. I felt like I was working really hard in practice. I was trying to be a good teammate. And my dad always said, like, games are kind of like candy. And so that's what I said. I was like, I feel like I'm working really hard, but I'm not really getting any candy. And he said, you need to trust the process, focus on being the hardest working guy on the team, do extra, be a great teammate. And when he first told me to trust the process, I was like, screw the process. Like, I want the results right now. I don't want to trust the process. I want to play now.
Because you thought that was a process. I'm working hard.
Yeah, I want to play now.
That's fun. That's your dad's big saying too, is trust the process.
And we got that from Coach Sherman.
Okay,
that was on the back of my helmet, trust the process. Because I feel like when I really bought into that and I lived my daily life in the process versus being so consumed with the results or the outcome, life was way better. It was way stressful. I knew what I was focused on that day. But it was probably, a good month or two before I really bought into that. And I took pride in that. Like, by the end of the year, even the coaches and all the players, my nickname was Coach G, because I was just one of the most supportive guys on the bench. I only played like 10 games that year, was doing extra workouts, trying to be on the ice extra when we had it. And then that next year, I played 10 games and then ended up playing in the USHL. And everyone's kind of like, what happened? And it was like, I just put in so much work and trusted in that process that eventually I got rewarded for it. I never knew when that reward was ever going to come.
Or if.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know if or when. But I think the biggest thing is, like, when you trust in that process, the most important thing is who you become in that process versus any outcome that you'll ever have. Like, I never played in the NHL. Obviously, I wish that I did. But regardless if I played in the NHL, in the Coast, in the SP, whatever, who I've become in this process is far more important than any destination I would have ever reached.
Yeah, it's funny because, I do a lot of leadership training through the fire department, and then I do a lot extra on my own. And it's not Jocko, but there was one of the leaders was like, hey, fake it, realize that you have things you need to fix in yourself, and fake it for the first week, the first month. But if you keep doing it, if you keep the mindset of, I'm going to be that guy, I'm going to trust the process, I'm going to be that guy, whether you believed in it or not at the beginning, you're going to start seeing people's attitudes towards you change, and it's going to change you. It's going to make you be what you wanted to be. And I think it's hard to tell kids that. And I think it's hard for kids to understand that, you got to trust the process, because especially if they're going home, their dad's like, hey, you didn't play this week. How come you're not in the games? There's a balance there, right? And that's where I'm trying to gear all these questions leading up into your next thing that you've got going on. Mm-hmm. But where do you tell a kid, especially if he's going home and his dad's saying, hey, we're not seeing you play games. You're sitting at the bench and we're paying money for you to be there, or you're in the stands. How do you keep that kid going?
Yeah, I think it's hard, especially at the age level that I'm coaching. That's why I believe in development. They all need to play. Everyone's not going to be on the power play and whatever else. But at this age, they need to play. At my age, when I'm 16, it's really more, I believe in my coaches. And again, once I believe that if I commit to doing this, I'm going to be far better off than where I was at the beginning. And it's funny, I had this conversation with my college team last year, and I saw an interview the other day with Scotty Scheffler, and he talks about the same thing. But the way that my analogy for it was like, when you go on a hike, a lot of times you're climbing up that mountain and you're asking people coming down, am I about halfway? How close am I? How far am I? And you're so worried about getting to the top versus just being in the moment, taking the hike. Whenever you get there, you get there. And then the worst part is you have this expectation of what the top is going to look like. You get up there, it's completely different than what you ever imagined it. You sit there for maybe 5 minutes, and then you start to climb down. So the top is the results, and the climb up and the climb down is the process. So why would you be so consumed with the 5 minutes that you're going to get to enjoy this thing that you just work so hard for, instead of enjoying the work that you do and the time that you spend in doing that? Because you're spending far more time in that process, the climb up and the climb down, than you are at the destination. And I think Scotty Scheffler talked about that a lot. He's like, you work so hard your whole life and years, and then you win this tournament and this trophy, and it's like you get to enjoy it for an hour maybe, and then it's gone. Like, it's that destination or that mindset, it's very fleeting. It doesn't last very long. The process lasts forever.
That's one of the things I've been talking about on this show more and more is, and it's not just the process of making it to the next team or making the NHL. For me, it's the process of developing, like you said, developing athletes. I think we're developing people. And I think that's the missed focus of sports, is developing people and developing young athletes to be high functioning. And I just heard this analogy somewhere else where a youth leader in a black community was talking about basketball players. Or no, I think it was NFL. And he's like, hey, the white community teaches their kids to take wins, take losses, learn from it, and then get into whatever it is, get into college and move on. And they're just teaching their kids, hey, NFL or bust, basically. And then you have broken individuals at the end of it if they don't make the NFL. And to me, that encapsulates the whole thing, is that for all of us, we need to be teaching, we need to be taking, first off, we need to support our kids. And I really hope the days of parents sitting over the boards and yelling at the kids or on the soccer field or whatever, just yelling and yelling at refs, I hope those days are gone. Although it seems like if you have TikTok, it's getting worse and worse. Moms jumping on the ice and, the fights in the stands and stuff. But you develop these kids and you teach them how to push themselves, how to set and attain goals, how to deal with setbacks and losses and injuries and adversity, and how to work within a team, even if you don't like everybody on the team, even if it's not your same community, but how to embrace that team and try to bring everybody to the same level and to learn from them as well and to jump to their level. And then how to work for a coach that maybe you don't even like, or that maybe he's not your style or not your friend or whatever, but you teach them that. So then later when they go into the workforce, they're successful because they adapt and overcome immediately. And they're able to work for bosses they don't like, and they're able to work in an environment with people that they don't see eye to eye with. And I think that's one of the main things that as you get older and you progress out of sports, you're like, this is the part where I really should have focused. I don't know. And that leads me into what you're talking about next. And I just saw that you launched this, and I wanted to talk to you about it and how it's going to work and how we can get kids involved with your new process. And what else do you have going on now?
Yeah, so obviously doing my lessons. I've had my camps for a little bit now, so continuing to do that. Just kind of a rebranding. The mentorship, I think, is what you're kind of alluding to. So it's just really via Zoom, and it's either you're local or you're not. Like I have kids that I work with that go and play juniors, and it's kind of just a service that I'm there for you. We do video review if they don't have a good goalie coach or a goalie coach. I shouldn't say a good goalie coach. Don't have a goalie coach. They may be struggling mentally. Hey, what do you think about this? Like really I'm just there to help them with whatever they need help with, really. And we have conversations like this all the time. Me and a goalie, Justin Bears, were having a conversation in the locker room before we got on the ice yesterday about like a post-goal routine. Like what do you do to flush that goal and then move on to the next save? So really it's more the mental side, to your point, and how do you deal with all these things that these kids have to deal with? Because I'd be lying to say if I did it all by myself. I had so many people in my corner that helped me when maybe I was down, for lack of better words. And if you don't have those anchors or that support system, you're going to be lost and you're going to be stuck. And a lot of times, to your point, they're not your parents. Sometimes they can't be.
No.
There was a time in my life where I didn't want to listen to mom and dad.
Right.
So then you have to find someone else that you think is a mentor that you can trust and you think is guiding you in the right direction, and really reach out and lean on those people in those times. Yeah,
and that's a huge resource to have. And that's, I coached my camp I ran it for 19 years. I coached it for maybe 5. And then I realized, hey, especially even my own son, my son didn't want to listen to me, right? He wants to listen to somebody that's done more. But it wasn't just going out and getting guys that had done more. I wanted to get guys that could help the mindset part. And that's why I hired the coaches I hired, is that I always believed that they were going to come in and be positive role models, lead by example, but also be somebody that was like, they'd fought through enough too, where they'd be like, hey, if that kid needs somebody to talk to, I'm going to talk to him.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing how much that can help somebody. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a psychologist to help a kid that's in need. And you're highly educated, right? You have a master's degree and
no master's.
Oh, I thought you did have a master's.
Short. 1 year
short.
1 year short.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But it's you can realize that there's a kid that needs something and even if they just need to talk so that they can think the process out in their own mind, and somebody just to bounce that off of, right?
Well, what is a coach doing if a kid's down and you're going over there and you're talking to them? If you're the kid and I'm talking to you when you're having a downtime, what am I now creating?
I don't know. You tell me.
Trust.
Okay. Yeah.
So the first thing that you need to do before you start coaching anybody, whether it's a goalie or it's a team or anyone, you have to develop that trust factor. Because who's Tegan going to talk to more? You, his dad, who he trusts and knows has his best interest at heart, or some stranger on the street? So
Right.
before you can start coaching anyone, you have to build that trust and show that you genuinely care about them as a person first before a hockey player. Because if you just show that you care about their skills and their hockey, that's not going to last very long.
But a lot of coaches didn't realize that.
I think
For
a lot of coaches still don't realize
Yeah,
that.
for a long time, it hasn't been, and like you're talking about with development at U14s. Hey, I'm coaching U14s. They're all going to play. A lot of coaches are like, hey, I'm coaching U14s. We got to win.
Yeah, I mean, these kids aren't going to the NHL next year, and maybe some people don't agree with this mindset. I honestly don't care how many games we win this year.
No.
I care about those kids developing as people first and as players second, and I want them to have fun and enjoy the process and learn the mental side and the mindset they need to have to be successful. Because I'm teaching them and prepping them to move on to higher levels. Hopefully, we've talked about it before, Utah gains more traction. We get better teams here. Kids want to come to us. But if it doesn't happen and they have to go play somewhere else, I want them to have the opportunities that I had in my life. Whether they play for the Renegades or the Grizzlies or Ogden, I don't care where they play. I just really want to support the kids in Utah as best as I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do they get a hold of you? If there's a parent listening right now that says, hey, that sounds like good stuff. That's what I want my kid to be involved in. Mm-hmm. Not even just, they can't afford to play for the Renegades or their kid's not good enough yet. That doesn't make that team, but they can still reach out to you for mentorship. How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff I post is on Instagram. So it's just Metcalf Hockey. It's in my bio if you follow me on Instagram, just Garrett Metcalf. Search it up at either of those two, and then send me a DM. We can get connected through email or through phone, and however I can support you or your kids, please let me know.
All right. That's awesome. There's so much progress being made here, and I guess I do need to talk to you. What are your thoughts on, we're talking about all the progress, but what are your thoughts on the Grizzlies moving?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Do you hear all these different stories? Is Utah going to bring the AHL? Like, what's going to happen? Everyone thinks they have a crystal ball, but I mean, it's the same thing in the process we talk about. Nobody knows when something's going to happen until it happens. But if it's true that they are moving, which I think it is true, I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to come back and play for them before they were gone, to be honest with you. So I think it's sad, and I don't know if they'll fill the void. I feel for maybe some people that can't afford the NHL as consistently as they did the ECHL. And I mean, we've talked about there's some great prospects in the ECHL. Trent Miner, Hayden Hodgins played in the NHL, like a lot of guys that now play in the NHL. So to be able to see that, I guess at that cost and that level is really nice.
Yeah. Well, and I know the Utah Mammoth had a deal set up. They were gonna put I think it was 5 players on a goalie there. So Anson Thornton was probably going to end up in Utah this year, and now I don't know that that's going to happen. I know that they're still going to put players there, but I know they're not going to invest as much because they're going to have to find something else to fill the void in the meantime to where they're going to put their ECHL level players.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where they go because they were with Allen last year technically, right?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for all that you're doing. I'm excited about all the changes and all the developments that are coming to Utah. I'm excited that you're back in Utah. I just can't see you staying in the youth organizations for that long. I think that you've done too much and gone too far and coached at too high of a level. I hope that people appreciate that this is the opportunity to strike, that you're here as a coach and that your camps are here. Because I have a feeling, especially with the NHL being here, that your name's already in their system. Clearly, they're randomly sending you emails and inviting you to stuff. So hopefully that's a sign of good things to come for you.
Yeah, just trust the process, be where my feet are, and that's coaching the U14 team and just doing my lessons. So whatever life has in store for me, I look forward to it, but just enjoying the moment. So,
well, good luck to you, and come back.
Yeah, it's always great being on and great seeing you and catching up, so I really appreciate this.
Well, we want to hear how everything goes, and I want to hear the progress that you're making with kids, and that's what it's all about, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, thanks, Jay.
All right, that is the Utah Puck Report.